Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the show business edition of the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by John Zaozirny, president of feature film production and literary management at Bellevue Productions. John, his clients' writing and directing credits, including Infinite, Parallel, Eli, Bad Match, Better Watch Out, Heavy Trip, Office Advertising, Sprinting, A Crooked Somebody. His clients have written TV shows such as Bosch, Mr. Robot, Training Day. He's got feature film credits with Warner Brothers, Universal, and many, many others. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Let's go back in time a little bit. How'd you get into the business in the first place?
I went to film school, a really boring answer, and then worked as an assistant and had a kind of a circuitous route to getting to what I do now, which is I originally wanted to be a screenwriter, but then I worked in feature film development because I figured I needed to do that. So I worked at Leonardo DiCaprio's company, Appian Way. And then I worked for a screenwriter, Andrew Marlowe, and his wife, Terry Miller. Andrew went on to create the TV show Castle with Nathan Fillion. So I was a writer's assistant on the first 3 seasons of that. Then I got into independent producing with a buddy of mine, Bobby Sablehouse. And then eventually I started Bellevue purely as a film production thing, and then segued into literary management when one of the writers I worked with a lot thought I would be a good fit for it and said that he would be my first client, essentially. And so the literary management side of it started in 2015. It's only 7 years ago, and we've been pretty successful since then in terms of having a lot of, we had 3 #1 scripts on the Blacklist, which is this annual list of the best kind of most well-liked scripts of the year. So, 50% of the last 6 years, and I've had some big movies made and sold some stuff and gotten people on TV shows. So, and we're now a 5-person company. Which is including myself, which is nice, since start off as a 1-person company. So nice growth.
So I'm sure the longer version of that should probably be in a book somewhere, if it isn't already. Congratulations on all you've achieved so far. So talk a little bit. What does a day in the life of John look like now?
It honestly, as a manager, it varies a great deal based on what kind of comes in that day in terms of client crises or other things like that. But generally, it's a lot of, dealing with emails and things like that in between scheduled calls, which could be about, I still do producing. I primarily only produce client projects. I don't produce all my clients' projects, only the projects that typically I originate in terms of my idea or a piece of IP that I find. So this movie Infant that we got made, that was a book that I optioned and brought to a client. So we'll be having meetings about that. We'll be having meetings, typically virtually to discuss, or over the phone to discuss, a client's script or a client's idea. Sometimes I'm doing meetings or calls or lunches to catch up with people who are buyers, people who are producers, people in the industry. But it's kind of generally scheduled around, 3-4 kind of scheduled items. And then all the other stuff in between that, emails, phone calls, crises that emerge throughout the day.
What do you look for in a project that you're going to be producing?
In terms of what I'm going to produce, it's only going to be client material, and it's typically going to be things that either are my ideas or ideas I bring to a client, or ideas that I like. If a client's like, I want to do a snowboarding movie, and I'm like, okay, what if it's a snowboarding movie where they end up robbing banks while on snowboards or something? Then like I materially really change the thing. But I try to veer away. A lot of managers have gotten into producing as they produce every single thing. So I was kind of the joke I make is there's two kinds of managers. There's managers who occasionally produce and producers who occasionally manage. And I'm very much a manager first, not a producer. And so I'm more interested in my clients' long-term career health than necessarily my producing aspirations or focus.
Since you started out wanting to be having a passion for screenwriting, how does that inform who you represent now?
I look for the people who are better than I was. I think it's less about what I look for in people I represent, and more about I know how to speak to people, because I did come from a background where I was a writer. So I don't try to give a note that I don't have a version of a solution for. But when I'm looking for clients, I look for people who are obviously talented. That's the first thing I look for. Are they talented on the page? That's weirdly almost the easiest thing to assess is like, are they talented enough for me to feel like if other people read them, they would respond the same way that I have? And secondly, I'm looking for, are they driven? Are they ambitious? Is this a hobby, or do they really want to make this a career? Because it's a very difficult field to succeed in. I think there's more players in the NFL than there are working feature screenwriters in the WGA West. And the third thing I look for are they collaborative? Do they have a great attitude? Are they, very precious and difficult to work with? If so, being a screenwriter is really about compromise and collaboration. That's going to be difficult for them to make a living at. So I'm looking for people who, if I put them in a room, that people would come out and be like, I've got to find a way to work with that client of yours. They're amazing. Because, as much as I represent my clients represent me. And if my friends, who are the executives out there, are meeting people who, my clients who are they're like, wow, that person seems difficult. That person seems a pain in the butt. Then, they're going to be like more loath to meet people that I represent in future. So it's, as much as I represent people, they represent me. And I want to make sure that they're going to be a great representation of me and my company out there.
You mentioned in terms of numbers, like the number of working screenwriters in WGA West, obviously versus aspiring screenwriters worldwide. So how do you deal with, the tsunami of submissions to find the diamonds in the rough worth attempting to get made?
You just have to, I try to read almost everything that comes into me. There are some key exceptions. Like a lot of people send me kind of what are called query emails, and they'll attach a file. The same way that if you got an email that had a file attached to it from someone you didn't know, you delete it because you don't know the virus, it creates legal issues, all that kind of stuff. But people do it in a proper format. I'm reading it. I'm like, the first thing I'm looking at, is this an idea that feels interesting to me? And the reality is we know very quickly if an idea is interesting or it's not interesting. Does it resonate with us? And, to be fair, there's some of that Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours stuff where I'm like, I've done this for so long that, look, it doesn't mean that I'm not wrong sometimes. I definitely, have been wrong and will be wrong in the future, but I have to go by my instinct. The mistakes I've made in my career have been when I've ignored my instincts and gone with like, well, other people seem to think this is good, or other people, and it's inevitably not quite worked out. So I have to go with what my gut tells me that it's interesting and exciting. And to be blunt, as I gain more success and have more clients and, other parts of my life kind of growing, the business, family, such, the bar just gets higher and higher in terms of like, is this something that I'm excited about enough? As a manager, I don't make money until my clients make money. No one's paying me a deposit or, I forget the term for like lawyers where you put the money in.
Retainer.
No one's paying me a retainer, so I get paid when they get paid. And I have to believe in this client that they will get paid, hopefully sooner rather than later, because that's when I get paid.
So much of your business is about relationships. How do you maintain those in today's crazy, hectic world?
It's really about, I think the first thing I would say is like, people know when I come to them that I'm bringing them something that I really believe in. And so in that sense, they know that I'm quality first. And that's something I've tried to impress upon everyone else in my company that I think they also live by is, a Bellevue manager is reaching out to you about a script. We're not going to be reaching out to you 4 times a month. We're going to reach out to you once a month, once every 2 months, so when we reach out, it means, hey, this is worthy of your time. This is quality. And, a pass that I'm perfectly fine getting is, hey, this was a great read. It just wasn't for me. It's just not what we're looking for. I want to know that people felt like this was a good use of their time, that it wasn't a low quality script. And, I think that's why we have so much success on things like The Blacklist and have a pretty good rate in terms of selling screenplays and getting people staffed, is that when we reach out to people, we try to make sure that it's really quality based. And so I'd say that's the first thing. And then, I really don't try to take anything personally in terms of a pass. If I think someone has acted unprofessionally, I don't necessarily feel the need to confront them most times, unless there was something positive come out of that. But I will kind of check it away. You're like, oh, this is someone who doesn't tell the truth, or this is someone who's non-responsive, or this is, in that case, I just don't bring the material anymore, because confrontation rarely ends up with a positive outcome, unless it's a very specific circumstance. What's more important is knowing in future. And so what I try to be is, if this is person who can't be relied on or can't be trusted, then I just don't bring them stuff, because the worst case thing would be down the road, I have another client who's in a situation with this person and the same thing happens. I say, oh yeah, this is the second time this has happened. And the client goes, well, if this has happened before, why did you put me in this situation? And so that's really it, is not taking things personally and understanding this is a business, but also clocking who is acting in a way that I deem professional.
Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you do?
I like finding people, typically my business, the way that I've modeled it, in terms of as a manager, is I find people early in their careers and I try to kind of get them paid. I try to launch them from being, someone who hasn't made money at being a screenwriter into getting paid. I mean, I do take on people who are more established. That does happen. But I kind of think of myself walking along the beach, looking at pieces of glass, finding, something great that I think could be a diamond, so for me, my favorite part is really launching someone, getting them their first agent, getting them their first sale, getting them their first job on a TV show, getting them on the blacklist. And so they can turn around to their family and be like, hey, you know what? See, I'm doing it. I'm really living it. And so that's the most fun for me, is really launching them and then maintaining it. And a lot of those people who start as clients really become friends to me. And because we're a relatively small company, we're close that way, which is nice.
That sounds amazing. With all you've got going on, are you still finding any time to write yourself?
No, not at all. For me, I've always been, I was a good to pretty good writer, but not good enough in my personal estimation. I had the format down and I was good at ideas. Then I moved into producing and I was a really good producer because I was really great at ideas and really great development. And I'd become, if I can toot my own horn, an exceptional manager because I can take all those skill sets before and kind of compile them down. But a lot of times if I have an idea, I bring it to a client and I'll be like, hey, here's an idea. Or if I have an idea for a scene, the client will kind of put it into the script. So I feel like it's the best version of writing, which is I have an idea and then someone else has to actually do the typing.
You don't have to do the actual work. I can judge
the thing. In terms of the actually writing and doing things like that, that was one of the issues with me as a writer, is I was great at coming up with ideas and I've got a lot of first 30 pages of screenplays. I was not as great at completing them. And so in this sense, I can, work with people who have a better work ethic as a screenwriter than I have. I'm really good at big picture macro stuff, and I can work with people who are great at the micro stuff.
That is awesome. Well, we know your time is incredibly valuable. We greatly appreciate you spending some of it with us. This has been Seth Greene with John Zaozirny from Bellevue Productions, BellevueProds.com. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.